This is chapter 6, and this is exercise number 2 in the exercises I've assigned. The very first thing I'm going to do is come down here at the bottom, and I'm going to read what is it they want me to do. I'm not going to read all of this information first to clutter my mind. I'm going to come down here. So it says prepare a flexible budget for the actual units produced for January, February, and March in the machining department. Assume depreciation as a fixed cost and enter all amounts as a positive number. If required, use per unit amounts carried out to the nearest cent. Okay, so we're going to prepare a flexible budget, and I can see down here there's a table they've given me. Units of production, I'll need to fill that in for each month. I'll need to figure out my wages and my utilities and then depreciation. And they said depreciation would be a fixed cost. So let's go up and grab the units, and it gives me units here, the actual dollars spent, and these are the units in this area right here. So the units, let's put those in. We have 63,000 and 58,000 and 52,000. So I have my number of units introduced into this exercise. I need to calculate the wages per hour. I'm going to clip this and go over here to another page so I can make my calculations and show you. So on this page, I can calculate my wages, and it says that the wages per hour is $22. The direct labor hours per unit is 2.25. So for every unit I do, I could actually do, I'm going to do it in 15 minutes, or I'll do 4 per hour. So I can take the number of units and divide it by 4 or multiply it by 0.25. So for January, let's go ahead and make that calculation. For January, I can take 6,300 units times 0.25, and that's going to give me the number of hours consumed. 63,000 times 0.25. That'll be 15,750. I can do the same thing for February. Change my color. 0.25 times, equals 0.25 times my 58,000. That's 14,500. For March, 52,000 times 0.25, 52,000 times 0.25. This is giving me the number of hours, direct labor hours, for each period to produce that number of units. Now my labor cost, I have to multiply it times the rate per hour. And the rate per hour, remember, is $22. So I'll multiply each of those numbers times $22. So I'm going to multiply the 15,750 times 22. That's 346,500. I'll multiply the 14,500 times 22. That equals 319,000. I'm going to multiply the 13,000 times 22, and that's 286,000. So now I have the wages that are budgeted for each period. I can now carry these numbers over to the other schedule. So here I'll put 346,500 And then I'll put 319,000 in the next column. And finally in this column, 286,000. So I've got my wages budgeted. Now let's look at the utilities. It says utility cost per direct labor hour is $1. So I can go back and use those same numbers. Here I have my direct labor hours for January, February, and March, and it's $1. So I'm just going to grab this number, 15,750 times $1. 15,750. 14,500 is my next one. And I think the last one is 13,000, right? So that's going to be 13,000. So I now have my budgeted variable costs, which include my wages and my utilities. Finally, I'm going to add my depreciation in here, which was a fixed cost, and that's 29,000. I'm going to add each one of these numbers up. So I'll take the column of 63,000 for January plus the 346,500 plus 29,000. And that looks like 438,500. Make that a little larger for me to read. Next, I'm going to take the February column of 58,000 plus 319,000 plus 14,500 plus 29,000 fixed costs. That equals 420,500. And for March, we'll add the 52,000. Oh, I'm making an error. I'm adding the units. We have to just add our costs. So I'm going to change these numbers here. I'll take the 286,000 plus the 13,000 plus the 29,000 fixed costs, and that's 328,000. Let's change this number, and I want 319,000 of wages plus the utilities of 14,500 plus the fixed cost of 29,000. That's 362,500, and we'll need to change this number, and that's going to be my wages of 346,500 plus the utilities of 15,750 plus the depreciation of 29,000. That equals 391,250. So I made an error in the very beginning. I was adding the units, and that's not a cost, that's a unit. So all you add are the costs, the wages, utilities, and depreciation. So I've checked my work, and everything's okay now. Remember, I don't want to add the units into my budget because that's the units. All I add are the variable costs and fixed costs. I'm going to post this up as part 1, and then I'm going to do the second part, and I will post it up as part 2.